Well, thanks for your interest in how to take your OpenText intelligent capture or Captiva system and turn it on steroids. My name is Kai Wille, Director of Strategic Alliances for Foxit Software. Now, before we get started into how to turn that system onto steroids, let's take a look at what's happening in the market that's driving the need for those steroids. The first thing that we're seeing in the market is that, of course, paper is declining. Already in 2019, it was down to 43% of documents came in on paper, meaning 57% came in via digital paths. And in fact, that's predicted to go down to 25%. And so if you look at that, you find that there is a number of business problems as a result of those changes. And that is that organizations, especially IT, doesn't have control over how these documents are created. So 75% of the documents are going to be created by somebody else. And that means corrupted files, files with antiquated file formats like WordPerfect or Multimate, oversized files where somebody scanned at 600 dpi in color or used their phone to take a photo of a document, and corrupted files, viruses in files. All of these things are going to cause compliance problems from a long-term archiving perspective, uh, slow business processes having to handle those monster-sized files, and of course, business process exceptions, where people have to manually intervene and deal with these documents. That's part one. From here, of course, lots of organizations are heading to the cloud. And as they do, and in fact, many of them are already there, 83% of workloads today are in the cloud now. And in fact, organizations are spending $1.2 million a year on their cloud budgets. And so as you go to the cloud, is a new set of pain that organizations have to deal with. First, this is that, well, when storage was cheap on premise, in the cloud, 4 or 5 times more expensive. And so storage costs become an issue. And there's an unpredictable aspect here, which is having to pay to access your documents. Ingress and egress fees that are being charged by the major cloud vendors are a serious problem because they're difficult to predict. Because if business patterns change, you may be accessing your documents dramatically more than you used to, and that can burn your cloud budget up in a matter of months instead of the year that you had planned. Aside from that, as you move to the cloud, you may have terabytes of content to move, which can be painfully slow, sometimes take weeks to transfer. The last market change, also really obvious, many more of us are working remotely. 159% increase over the last 12 years, and that's not counting the last few months that we've been dealing with the corona crisis. But a key ingredient here is that 81% of organizations, the employees, are specifically in need of being able to access business documents on their corporate servers from their mobile devices. The problem? Access is slow. Internet bandwidth from remote locations can be painfully slow, especially mobile devices are impacted. And so you've got slow upload and download and file open times, and that's really going to impact business productivity. And those are the three issues that we're seeing or changes that we see in the market. So let's take a look at some customers that have experienced these problems and how they dealt with them. Our first customer is a law firm. And their big issue? Files are too big to email. So the problem here is that organizations are receiving, especially law firms, are receiving lots of documents that they have no control over how these documents are created. And so you get huge files, and you have to share these files around the law firm, but also with clients. And so a lot of this is still done via email or uploads, and that can take a long time if these files are very large. And so the objective clearly was that we needed to speed up document-related workflows and improve productivity so that legal discovery could be simplified and enhanced. And so the result is leverage advanced document compression to shrink documents by an average of 50% for those image files, and therefore get much faster legal discovery, but especially make those big files easy to email. And so that ultimately improves access for documents overall. And of course, this is fully integrated directly into OpenText's intelligent capture platform. The second example is the New York Department of Environmental Conservation. In this case, it's all about image quality and, in fact, retaining the integrity of documents. And so the key ingredient here is that the previous process that they were working with was turning all the documents into TIFFs. And so that meant that critical metadata, such as bookmarks, table of contents, hyperlinks, all of those things were lost as the document is converted to TIFF and then OCR. Plus, it's painfully slow to convert documents to TIFF. And so their objective was to stop OCRing and converting documents to TIFF that are born digital in the first place, right? Convert them digitally into searchable PDF documents, therefore keeping bookmarks, table of contents, hyperlinks, and all of those things intact. And so that allowed them to keep documents fully indexed, and especially performance is dramatically increased because we're not OCRing documents that don't need to be OCR'd. The third example is JP Morgan Chase. Their mortgage processing organization, in this case, had the need to speed up mortgage processing, business efficiency in a mortgage processing organization. You've got an army of people opening documents, hundreds of documents a day in order to approve them. And so if we could shave even a few seconds off those file open times, that can translate into thousands of hours of productivity loss if documents are opening slowly. In addition to that, in the mortgage industry, documents must be archived for 37 years, which for a large bank like JP Morgan Chase will create a petabyte storage requirement. So the objective clearly was not only reduce storage costs, but in fact, optimize the ingestion process of the documents so that the mortgage processing team would get efficient documents that will open quickly in the first place. And so they processed more than 1.25 billion images in the first year in order to achieve their ROI by directly embedding the ingestion process into their Captiva or OpenText Intelligent Capture environment. And that's the key ingredient to improving business efficiency within the mortgage processing group. So we've been talking about document compression to reduce storage requirements, to improve business efficiency, but what does that really mean? So here are some examples of what does document compression even mean and how small can files really get? The first example is a very common document, your black and white invoice. You scan it in, a single page is going to be about 100K as a TIFF file. Now, how much smaller could a TIFF file get if you were to compress it? And so in this case, 76% smaller, so from 141K to 34K, while we turn it into a searchable PDF file. Normal business solutions, when you convert a TIFF into a searchable PDF, the file size will increase because of the PDF wrapper, and of course the OCR data will make the file larger. So this is a key ingredient of Foxit's technology, the ability to shrink files, even though we're adding value such as searchable, the searchable aspect of them. And if you look at the image quality before and after, this is a key ingredient. There are other compression technologies on the market, but most of them will ruin the image by downsampling from 300 dpi to 150, and that will make the image quality terrible on the other side. Here's another example, a color invoice. Starts as a TIFF file, JPEG compressed, about 0.5 MB. So how much smaller could this file get? And again, dramatic storage compression capability here, 93% smaller while we turn it into a searchable PDF. And again, if you look at the image quality, you can see the background does not look as nice, which is the key ingredient of this compression technology, is by detecting the text layer and compressing it with JBig2 while using MRC compression for the background, you can highly compress business documents and achieve fantastic compression results. Here's a final example, a magazine article. In this case, it's pretty large in the first place. It's a color document, 7 megabytes. So how much smaller could it get? Dramatically smaller, 99% compression going from 7 megs to 60K, while at the same time, you can see the text is nice and crystal clear as a searchable PDF file. So now you have a feeling for just how much smaller your documents can get. In general, we see that most organizations have mostly black and white documents to compress. So an average of about 50% compression is a realistic number to use. The 90+% numbers are great for organizations that have a lot of color images. So the key ingredient, though, is that how do we build a business justification around this in order to find budget to make this a reality? And the first aspect to that is ultimately the ROI calculation. Is there value? And so if you think about the JP Morgan case, you've got hundreds of employees opening, in fact, hundreds of files a day. So in this example, it's taken 3 seconds to open a file. That doesn't sound very long. So could we add value to this? And so there are 100 documents being opened per employee, but there are 200 people doing it. These employees are making $30 an hour, and they're working 200 days a year. So if you do the math, 100 times 3 is 300 seconds, or 5 minutes of time that they're spending waiting for documents to open every day. But of course, if you do the math across all of the employees, 200 employees in this case, across a year, that's actually more than 3,000 hours of lost productivity. And multiply that times the 30 hours, you're throwing $100,000 out the window a year waiting for documents to open. So what could we do? Obviously, we can't get the document file open time down to 0, but we might be able to cut it in half. So in this example, we're going from 3 seconds to 1.5 seconds. That means we're going to take the 3,300 hours and cut it to about 1,600 hours. Now, the question is of course, $50,000 in savings, that's nice, but what could you do with the newly found 1,600 hours of productivity? That means everybody could be processing more mortgages a day, more invoices, more claims, or whatever the team is doing to process every day in order to speed up productivity, improve customer satisfaction. This could be especially interesting for teams who are on the phone with customers who have to wait for files to open in order to improve the customer experience as they engage with the organization. The lost ROI calculator example here is the manual task. You go back to that law firm, they had to manually sit there and split files up to make them small enough so that they could be emailed. That's a painful process. You might take 5, 10, 20 minutes to open that up in a PDF editor, split the file up into multiple pieces, and then manually send multiple emails out to your customers. So that's very painful, very annoying to have to spend time on this. And so this lost time can really add up across an organization. And so by advanced document compressing these documents, you may be able to eliminate the need to split files up. With 50% compression, files as large as even 40 megabytes can now suddenly be small enough to email. And so you can potentially save, again, hundreds of hours of productivity, in this case, even thousands of hours of productivity, since 100 people were suffering from this problem, and therefore gain back thousands of hours and a lot of money, and especially improve, get rid of the frustration that employees are facing having to do this on a regular basis. Last example is that storage cost calculation. Storage cost savings are usually there when you're going to the cloud. On-premise systems don't tend to be that expensive, but once you head to cloud-based systems, it gets pricey. And so in this example, the customer has 50 terabytes of content already, but they're adding 10 terabytes a year. And in fact, that 10 terabytes is increasing every year, as it does for most organizations. So this year it's 10, next year it's 11, after that it might be 12, and so on. And they have to retain the documents for 20 years. And this is AWS S3 storage. They're paying $503 per terabyte per year. So you might say $503 per terabyte per year. It's not that bad. But if you multiply this out over the 20-year period, you find that, oh, that's a serious chunk of cash that's being spent to store documents and hand that money over to AWS. So what could you do? What if you could get just 45% document compression? That means you can cut the cost almost in half that you're giving to AWS, and therefore realize hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings over the retention period for the documents. So those are just some examples of how we can help to save money, but also improve business efficiency. And so we invite you to contact us and let's talk about this a little bit. Foxit Software is a PDF specialist, and we help millions of organizations with our technology every day, as we're embedded in Google Chrome, as well as the Amazon Kindle. We've been an OpenText partner for 15 years, and we're in the top 5 of the sellers within the Solutions Extension partners. And we invite you to contact us. We'd love to give you a demo and show you exactly how this technology works, show you how we could compress your documents, and of course, help with that business justification. Let's try those calculators out on your situation and your data to quickly determine if there's value for you and just how much it is. And if that makes sense, of course, we offer evaluation licenses at no charge so that you can try this out. So give us a call.